Hi, this is Peter Friedrich, and today we're speaking with Khurshid Shah about the Kashmir issue. Khurshid, I want to welcome you, and I want to express appreciation and thanks for your willingness to offer what's on your heart, what's in your mind about this, and to just share your perspective on what's happening in Kashmir, which is where you're from, isn't it?
Yes, thank you for having me here, Mr. Peter. I'm from Kashmir, central Kashmir, Ganderbal district, which is very close to Srinagar. And I have been here for 5 years and frequently visiting my family. But I haven't been in touch for last 12 days, I guess, right? It's now. The last time we talked, it was on 12th of August, after 4th of August, and after that, we couldn't communicate. The situation in Kashmir is literally worrisome for everybody, especially the people who are living outside Kashmir, because they haven't been in touch for a long time and they don't know what is going on, because the media, there are different narratives on the media. One narrative is everything is going well, which is like Indian mainstream media saying, but there are the contradictory views from the BBC, the Reuters, and then another Al Jazeera, that there are protests and people are suffering. There is a blackout, total blackout. Media is not being allowed to report from the ground zero. And what is being reported, portrayed by Indian media becomes the main headline, that everything is normal. If everything is normal in Kashmir, then why is there the clampdown? Even on the pro-Indian politicians have been sent to the jails. They are not being allowed to move. And then think about the plight of the common Kashmiri. They have no access to the internet. They have no access to their phone, no landline. They cannot talk. They cannot move out of the house. And during these days, there was Eid. People were not allowed to have a congregation in the masses, bigger mosques, because it's very important. It is once in a year. And look at the timing they did it. They did it in the middle of their tourist season, because everybody knows that tourism is the only economic opportunity that people of Kashmir have, and they did in the middle of that. They issued an advisory from the center that some attacks are going to happen from the Pakistan on the yatris, which are the local Indian tourists going for pilgrimage there, which is their local pilgrimage, and they have taken them out of the valley because there is something going to happen. And then the governor from India, they said, gave assurance to the people, nothing sort of is wrong is going to happen. No Article 370 is being abrogated. These are the rumors, so stop rumors, don't feel panic. But what do they think about the people of Kashmir? If you are taking out the tourists, your yatris, which are your people, so you didn't think about what is going, even if there is a terrorist attack. So you are putting the people of Kashmir in the line of the death. So that is really worrisome. That was a post-betrayal, the lie they did, which is on record even in Indian media. Mainstream media is stating that. And after that, overnight, yes.
So Khurshid, you said it's been 12 days since you've been able to speak with your family, and there is this ongoing Kashmir blackout, this blockade on communications. And in this whole environment where Kashmiris are unable to reach the outside world, and Kashmiris who, like yourself, are living outside of Kashmir are unable to contact their families, how do you feel about that? And as I ask you how you feel about it, also, this abrogation that you mentioned of these articles, Article 370 and 35A, how do you feel about that scrapping of these articles?
Yeah. The first question is about how people feel around the world, the Kashmiris, because they are not able to. The frustration is mounting, because the connection Kashmiri people have with their own family. Everybody has their parents anywhere in the world. It's like a basic human right to have communication, and then it's stopping it for so long. I think it is really distressing. It is really inhuman, I guess. And then coming to the next part, abrogation, like there is a majority, big majority in Kashmir that they never trusted India, and they never accepted it as a document, as a valid, authentic, and a legitimate document India is portraying about this, the agreement or accession of India, Kashmir to India, because they say it is a deceit, it's a lie, and we didn't get our opportunity, the referendum or the plebiscite we were promised in UN Security Council. So this agreement done by the Maharaja, who again was an occupier, who was from the India, not from a Kashmiri. So he did it on his own with the India, and keeping in view that there will be like three things he will capture with the state, like three things will be with the Indian state, the foreign affairs and the border things, and rest that will be handled by the state government. It was a sort of an autonomy, greater autonomy. But over the period of time, this autonomy was eroded on multiple occasions by the Congress government, but it was now just a shell. And this shell was exploited by Indian mainstream Indian politicians like National Conference and PDP to get the votes to be in the power. But what I think that BJP, they didn't betray the people, like, which is very shocking to maybe another my fellow Kashmiris, because it was on their agenda from the very first day that they want to abrogate it. It was on their election manifesto. So they didn't go out of the line. They are online on that. They didn't lie about that. They had to do it, and they wanted to do it for a long time. And now they have the absolute majority, which they were waiting for a long time. And then they did it, which I say it was not shocking for the majority of the Kashmiris, because they knew what's coming. And majority of Kashmir, they didn't accept it in the first place, because they have been asking for the plebiscite. It was only the chunk of the people like who are pro-Indian, supporting pro-Indian politicians like National Conference, Umar Abdullah's, and Mahbub Mufti's People's Democratic Party, who have over the decades promised Kashmiris. National Conference had the promise, like, we will give you the full autonomy, and we will have again our prime minister, again our president, and PDP, Mahbub Mufti's party, were saying about self-rule in both Indian administered Kashmir and Pakistan administered Kashmir. But for the people who were pro-freedom people, it was never an arrangement, because they didn't accept it in the first place. So this abrogation, maybe it was a surprise, the timing was the surprise, but it's coming, it was not a surprise, but because it was on the manifesto, our BJP manifesto in 2014, was now in 2019, and there were discussions going on about it. So it was not a surprise for me, but the timing was really surprising for everybody, because it was the tourist season and yatris were thrown out, and the lies that were pouring out that they won't do it, but finally they did it.
Well, as you mentioned, Khurshid, it's not a surprise necessarily that these articles were scrapped. It's been on the manifesto of the BJP for years, for decades, really.
Exactly.
What may have come as a little bit more of a surprise was this other move which stripped Jammu and Kashmir of statehood. And how do you feel about that issue of being downgraded from a state to a union territory?
Yeah, personally, I do take it as something very serious, because as long as it is on the international forum, United Nations Security Council, it is a disputed territory. It doesn't matter how many pieces you make it. Like in Pakistan or administered Kashmir, there is also Gilgit and Baltistan. They have divided it in two parts. And same in India, they now did it. They divided it into two union territories. But still, for the world, for the people of Kashmir and the rest of the world, it is still disputed territory. That is the first thing. And the second thing is, like, the struggle for Kashmir freedom, it didn't start in 48 or 47, which is being like portrayed by many people around the world. It started back in 1931, against the Dogra Raj, which was really repulsive, aggressive, brutal. In the history, what we have heard from our parents, the account of the history, what they did, and they used Kashmiri Pandits, like who were Hindus, to attack. They were really spying on the Kashmiri majority Muslims, how they are planning their agitation against the Dogras, because Hindus were the most privileged during that rule. And they knew that our intention is to join India. So this was it already started in 31. After, in 37, Pakistan started the Muslim League and then partition of Pakistan. But Kashmiri started it much before than that. And then this union territory and statehood, it is more like a political domestic, for the domestic audience of India, because they wanted to show they got the majority in Kashmir. Then how will they handle with their iron fist the Kashmir issue? They will now suppress it more. They will have more military approach in Kashmir and focus on Kashmir rather than Ladakh, because Ladakh more or less is a peaceful region, and they want to do it. Actually, what we were thinking, they will also strip off Jammu from the Kashmir, because they are demanding also for the statehood. But then maybe, I don't know what were the reasons they didn't do it. But now everywhere you in India, they see it has been done on the communal lines. But to me, it's surprising to say it's also a communal line, because we know the sentiments of three regions in Kashmir, in Indian administrated Kashmir, they are very mixed sentiments. If you take the valley, Kashmir Valley, which is almost 98-99% Muslims, the sentiment is pro-freedom sentiment. Majority, it's like pro-Muslim majority, it's a pro-freedom sentiment. They don't believe in Indian constitution. Then there is a second Jammu division, the Jammu region. They have majority, almost 60% Hindu population, which are more than happy. They are more Indians than the others, than the mainland Indians. So for them, I think being with India, they always tried it. It was always a Kashmir versus Jammu tussle, Hindu versus Muslim for last 2-3 decades now. In 2008, when there was this land draw agitation in Kashmir, because some politicians tried to give Kashmiri land to make some arrangements for the Yatra in Kashmir. And during that, there was an agitation. 60 people died in the agitation. And it was the Jammu people who blocked the supply line for Kashmiris to make them suffer more. Same happened in 2016. And we know what they have been doing to the students, Kashmiri students in Jammu. So majority of the Jammu, almost 60%, they are more pro-Indian. So for them also, it's a welcoming step like abrogation. They think it's a more integration. We have been demanding it for a long time. And Ladakh, they have been two districts, Leh district, Man district. They also, I think, were demanding for this union territory for a long time. Only the Kargil district, they are not happy about it. That's why they are agitated. They are protesting about it, and clampdown has been done there. That's my personal view.
You know, Khurshid, as you've mentioned, it's very interesting to keep in mind that the area of Jammu and Kashmir was under this Hindu Maharaja for many years, under the Dogra rule, actually from about 1846 to 1947, if I recall correctly. And this dynasty was a Hindu dynasty, which gave official state sponsorship to propagate Hinduism within the region, at the same time that the majority of the population was Muslim. And I've heard it phrased that it was Hindu rulers over Muslim subjects. So as you mentioned, this struggle for freedom kind of began back in 1931, and it was under this brutal authoritarian rule of the Dogras, which is interesting to keep in mind when we consider that this instrument of accession was signed by Maharaja Hari Singh Dogra, who was this last in the line of the Dogra dynasty, and who, as a ruler, as an authoritarian ruler, unilaterally made this agreement with India without consultation with the Kashmiri people. But as we move on, I want to ask you about the current situation and the reasons that have been given by the BJP government in Delhi for abrogating these articles and for the latest actions in Jammu and Kashmir is that it's for the sake of development. So I want to ask you, what do you think about that? And one, do you agree? Do you believe that this is actually being done in the name of development? And if you do not, what do you think that the real motive might be?
Yes. If it was for the sake of development, what is now being propagated, that implies that for last 70 years, the region was not developing and there was no development taking place. So it also like puts the blame on the Indian government itself that they were not doing enough to develop the region. Second thing, if you see all the indicators, be it poverty, which is international WHO records we have, or even the Indian, which they have published in their newspapers, all the indicators of development, the poverty indicators, Kashmir stands much above the Indian average. All in, be it education, be it health sector, be it other employment. And one thing more, after in 1953, when they arrested Sheikh Abdullah, who was the most leader in Kashmir, and when he returned as CM of the Kashmir, because he was PM and then returned as CM of Kashmir after I think 73, the main thing is that land laws were made, laws for the land, for the farmers were developed. According to that, every Kashmiri got his own land to build houses, because there were landlords who were occupying, and mostly those landlords were not Muslims. They were outside, they were Hindus. And there were also some Muslims also who were having thousands of hectares, and other people were like working in their fields. But this rule, it was much earlier done in Kashmir than in mainland India. So the Kashmiris had their own lands, own houses, everything. If you go now to the Kashmir, you will see no one in Kashmir is sleeping in the streets. But if you go to India, you will see millions and millions in metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai, everywhere, they are sleeping on the streets. First thing, on the environmental also, we are much better than this. The women rights, see, if you go to the India, the record of Indian in how women are being treated all over India, and recently in Greater Kashmir and other in Times of India reported that Kashmir is the safest place for women. So that's also one of the indicators Kashmir was doing much better on all the fronts. Now, this is an excuse to give to the domestic, voters to satisfy their ego, to satisfy their people what they are doing, to justify the injustice they have done to the people of Kashmir. But there are voices inside India, the left liberals, who are highlighting this, that Kashmir indicators of development are much, much better than rest of the India. If that was the case, you really care for the people. What are you doing for the people of Bihar? Look at the literacy rate in Bihar. Look at the literacy in other states, UP, in the North India. The literacy of North India is not more than 60%. That is more worrying for. So in last 72 years, if you couldn't develop your own states where you don't have to abrogate any 370, you were in rule for 72 years, why didn't you develop that? What was the excuse for that? If this was hindering you, if this was a hindrance for development, what was the hindrance in Bihar? What was the hindrance in UP? What was the hindrance in Odisha, in Madhya Pradesh? And what was the hindrance of developing the Muslim minority? See the Muslim minority, 14% Muslims in India, and see their share in political decision making. None of the Muslims is a Muslim, ministers is a Muslim. None. They have got 303 seats in this election, which is an overwhelming majority, and none of them is a Muslim candidate. In the cabinet, none is the Muslim candidate. So how do you justify this? It is not justifiable. If they were trying to develop Muslims or develop Kashmir on both the fronts, be it a region or a state, or be it as a minority, on both the fronts, they are contradicting with their view, with their perception that is there on the ground. There are the record stated facts, and the data is available. Like this is the data. How many ministers are Muslims in BJP government? None. And what is the state condition in Bihar, UP, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh? Assam, Kashmir is doing much better than these states. Then that is not I guess that's an excuse for the rest of the world to fool the people in India, I guess.
So what do you think is the real motive behind this move?
As I said earlier, it was on the agenda to merge Kashmir, to show the muscular approach, military approach. That's why this muscular approach, renting, posturing their arrogance of power to Pakistan, renting Pakistan in the election campaign, and Kashmir, we are doing this. We will not go soft on the people who are fighting against India or who are protesting against us. That's to garner their local vote bank. And then they did it very successfully, very smartly. They did it. They got the seats. They formed this majority. And the second is that the Hindutva agenda, which is there for since they are the people who killed Mahatma Gandhi, like their forefathers.
Let me interject there, Khurshid. I just want to, for those that are watching, remind people that Hindutva is this ideology which teaches that India is a Hindu nation for Hindu people, and which propagates this idea that non-Hindus do not belong in India and are indeed foreign to India, isn't it?
Exactly.
And as I understand it, this is the underlying ideology of the BJP.
Yes. What is behind in the back, what they are quoting from the history, Muslims have been ruling India for more than 600 years. Like Mughals have been there for a long time, and some Durrans, Afghans, some Turks have been ruling India, and they are saying that there were atrocities. They demolished our temples, they killed so many Hindu population in India. And from that ideology, there was an anti-ideology, this RSS Hindutva ideology to counter that. After the independence, they wanted it as a Hindu Rashtra, like the RSS. Their Hindutva agenda was that it should be a complete Hindu theocratic country, theocratic rule based on Hindutva ideology. That's why they killed Mahatma Gandhi, because they didn't want their liberal voices to be heard out. So their dominance was only in some pockets at that time. But now with this overwhelming majority of BJP winning from all corners of the country, and even the young people supporting them in making it a Hindutva state, that is the reason they are doing this. And second thing about these Muslims in India, which are like a minority, what they have been doing in last 6 years, there is a complete impunity. The government stands behind the people who lynch Muslims in the broad daylight. Every day you see a case, every day somebody is being lynched in India just for having a beef. Even yesterday, there was a high court hearing from Pehlu Khan. It was a headline in all the news channels. All the people who were arrested for the killing of Pehlu Khan have been acquitted, and they are now free because they are being supported by BJP government. So this lynching is to terrorize the minority in India. This is the motive is that behind that is this. The love jihad was also one thing they did it, like Muslims marrying Hindus to propagate more Islam in India, and Christians doing their missionary jobs here. They targeted some Christians in south and northeast of India, and minorities like Dalits, they targeted them as well. So they are propagating, emphasizing on the same Hindutva ideology. And now, because of this macho muscular image approach of Hindutva, because of the overwhelming majority and the popularism that authoritarian government they have right now, so they are openly now, I think, implying on that. They are now showing it that we could do it, it is possible. And look at the BJP ministers. There are so many BJP ministers which have been openly advocating for Hindutva ideology. And even they were saying that now we can get the Kashmiri girls from Kashmir. Like, see their mindset, the sexist mindset they have, misogynist mindset they have. So this ideology is really dangerous for, I think, for India more than for Kashmir, because in Kashmir, it's a Muslim majority, but somehow we are concentrated in one place because it's a Muslim majority state. But it's more dangerous for the fabric of India, liberalism, the Indian democracy. The image that had been created over the last 40, 50 years around the world, India being a liberal country, is now really in danger because it's not the same India what it was in 2010. Everything has been changed since BJP has come into the power. Minorities have been pushed, Dalits have been pushed, scheduled castes, tribes have been pushed. But I think this is more dangerous for rest of the India more than Kashmir.
You know, Krishit, as we move to a close and as we're discussing these issues of Hindutva and of lynchings and of these attacks on Muslims, Christians, Dalits, all of these groups, one thing that does come to my mind is that I've seen in the past week that after this latest move in Jammu and Kashmir, that the BJP is now talking about one of their next agenda items may be to push for a national law which criminalizes the freedom to convert, to change a religion without government permission. And these laws, known as anti-conversion laws, are in place already in about 10 states in India, but there is not currently any national law which, of course, criminalizes religious freedom in this way. Anyways, as we move to a conclusion, I want to ask you about your experiences growing up in Kashmir and what it was like for you, what the environment was like, what it was like walking down the street every day. I've spoken with many people who talk about experiences where schools were closed and they weren't sure when schools would be open, about being stopped and ID'd randomly by people who were there from outside of Kashmir and challenging you to prove that you belong in Kashmir. What was your experience like?
Yeah, growing up in Kashmir is not a good picture because when I was a child, I used to hear in the streets the slogans of freedom. There were freedom fighters because I was born in 90s, like in 89, I guess, yeah, 89. And that time, the militancy, the armed struggle started in Kashmir. So I am in the 90s kid who saw all these things happening in Kashmir because of this migration of Hindus from Kashmir. I don't know the reasons exactly because there are different narratives. Some people say that it was a motive of Indian government to take out, like they did it this time, to take out Yatris. They did it last time the same. But there is another narrative that there were some religious extremists backed by Pakistan or Kashmiri locals who threatened to kill some Hindus and then they had no other choice. I think that is like, I sympathize with that. It shouldn't have been like this. I still feel very sorry for the people, Hindus. But what we have been facing for after that 90s, that didn't stop till now. And this, when I was growing, most of the times our schools were closed. Even I've been grown up in a village without internet that time, any mobile phones, any communication, and not any presence of media anywhere. Every time we had the crackdowns of military coming to the village, beating up our parents, our brothers, elders, and holding gun on their shoulders and search for the militants, these rebels, house to house, humiliating the woman and raping. It was a daily norm everywhere, every day. And there was a sense like every day you had to go back home at around 8 till 9, finish your dinner and sleep. There was no other choice to keep the light on, watch the TVs. We didn't know what world is doing outside. We had no sense. We had no image what's going on in the world. It was really scary at the night to stay at home. We didn't know we should watch TV or not. The light is on, somebody will sneak inside the house and then the Indian army will be after him. And then they will kill the people inside. So it was very, very cruel. It was really disappointing, very upsetting atmosphere around that time. And after in this, the armed struggle that started in Kashmir, which was crushed with the time by Indian military, but with that, lots and lots of Kashmiris were lost. There were a lot of fake encounters because in the house, if there was some militant, he was not invited by the people. He came, he had to eat or stay somewhere. But the family was accused of supporting that and they were killed or their house was burned down into ashes. And every day people were subjected to torture. Where are those? Why do we support them? Where are they hiding? People don't have any idea, but they were still tortured, humiliated every day. It was really terrible every single day because there was no media. There was nobody to ask them. They were not put to task why you are doing that. So from my experience, growing up in Kashmir was not a very good experience. And even you know about the rigging of the election that happened in '89, that started this armed struggle. It was a really well thought out plan by India. They rigged the elections in Kashmir. The majority of the people voted for the Muslim League. After that, but they rigged the elections, bring the Farooq Abdullah to power by the center, and those people who won the election, they became the separatists. That's why the Salahuddin, who is in Indian Pakistan administrated Kashmir, he contested the elections first in. He wanted to develop in a democratic way, but he was pushed to do that. He went to the Pakistan. He didn't believe in the system of these elections. He thought that there is no solution like that. Another, the Kashmiri leader, which is very famous, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, he also contested 2 times in elections. And because of this rigging and these things done to bring the stooges in power, which lie with the Indian perception in Indian lobbying in Kashmir, they were allowed to rule.
So, Khurshid, my final question for you is, how do you feel about the future for Kashmir? What does it look like to you? And as people all around the world and all over India are discussing the ongoing issue in Kashmir, do you believe that the voices of Kashmiris are being given a proper place at the table, and that Kashmiris are given a prominent role in deciding what the future of Kashmir should be?
Exactly, no. Of course not. The Kashmiris are not being heard in the decision making. It was not before, it's not now. It's not like just in last 10, 12 days. It wasn't for last 50, 70 years. They were never given the platform. They were never given for their own future. Somewhere deciding their future. And what I see the future of Kashmiri youth, I'm very sorry to say, it looks very dark, very bleak future. You have a lot of uncertainty about their future. Like, how long will the curfew stay there? People will come out, the anger is mounting, it will vent out like a volcano, it will erupt. You cannot push for it so long. One day you have to lift the ban, you have to lift this blockade, you have to allow people to come out. And this frustration, people, they will get an opportunity to pour out this frustration. And then there will be clampdown, killings, blinding people with pellet guns. Again, this cycle of violence will start. I am sorry, I don't think it's ending somewhere in the future. And the people of Kashmir, they won't compromise it. The sense of belongingness to the Kashmir and the culture and this betrayal which they have been done by India, they will not take it very easily. They will fight for it, and I'm sure. I don't have any doubt. I have to have doubt about it. They will fight for it, no matter how much time it takes, what it costs, life, blood, anything. They will sacrifice everything, because I have seen 2008, I have seen 2010, I have seen 2016. They have been doing it over and over again, and they are not tired out of it. They will do it, but I don't know how India will deal with that mass movement and protesters. That is up to India, how they want to do it, like what Israel did in Palestine. They want to crush it with the gun, kill people with impunity, don't allow international media to report it. That's up to India, up to this India government to decide. But for Kashmir, I'm sure that they will not accept it. They will protest again. They will protest, and they will really be agitated about it. It's not looking good.
Khurshid, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to stand.
Thank you very much.
I want to stand with you in solidarity and in hoping for peaceful future and for lifting of this curfew very soon. And also, as you just alluded to, for access by international media and by Indian media, who should be, as a democratic human right, should be allowed unhindered access to this region immediately.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
Thank you, Kushi.